Yesterday, I talked about this article from the 19th. It says most men want a return to traditional gender roles, but women aren't so sure. So I was reading through that and I came across this other article from the 19th. It says, when it comes to rising costs, women are more worried than men about everything. And this makes sense. This is probably another reason why women want to keep working and don't want to do all of those traditional roles because we know that you need two incomes in this day and age. So let's go ahead and look at this article because the ladies said they wanted to see it, and I'm here to give you what you want. All right, it says a new 19th News Survey Monkey poll found that women, especially women of color, were more worried about covering the cost of groceries, housing, medical bills, childcare, and rent. I'm skipping to the bottom a little bit because they're talking about Black women, and I happen to be a Black woman. It says Black women also had far higher rates of worry. That's what they're talking about. Far higher rates than their white counterparts, especially when it came to food and housing costs. Since early this year, Black women's unemployment rates has been rising far quicker than for other groups, from 5.1% in March to 6.7% in August. Is currently at its highest rate in 4 years. I just want to remind us all that the personal is political and the political is personal. So many people can be like, I don't do politics. Well, politics will do you. And there are some of us that have more at stake because we live in a society that's both racist, sexist, and then you throw in some ableist. Obviously, you can throw in some homophobia and all of the other is. So there are going to be some people that are more impacted. So we have to have far more consideration. So that's the reason why some people, Black women, are more worried about things going on in politics in this economy. And why I will continue to say, let the birth rate plummet to hell, because I know that Black people, I know that women, I know that people that happen to have an intersection of being non-white and a woman or non-straight or whatever are going to be impacted more than other people. So yes, there are going to be some of us that are impacted and worry more so about cost than others. All right, let's get back to the top of this post. All right, back to the top. Rising costs have defined the past 6 years for Dana De Palma. It wasn't something she thought much about growing up in New Jersey with parents who both worked good jobs, who lived in a beautiful house. But in 2019, while in rehabilitation recovering from a drug addiction, she found out she was pregnant with her daughter. As a single mom, she moved back in with her parents and eventually started working at her child's daycare just so she can get the 50% discount that made it affordable. After 6 months, she left that job for a better one and now works in logistics. But it wasn't until this month, after months of looking for a place to live, that she was finally able to rent her own apartment. Her daughter just started kindergarten. De Palma has been sober for 6 years. Good for her. Just being a single mom, it's really hard to have a savings in general. I feel like I live paycheck to paycheck, just with basic needs supporting her and myself. Costs only keep creeping up, and she's not sure what comes next. Saving enough to make the move was several years of work. De Palma has no savings, nothing squirreled away for retirement. Home ownership feels like a far-fetched dream. I just feel like it's going to be impossible to be able to own my own home. My anxiety levels have been through the roof regarding money. That's a familiar story for most women these days, not just De Palma. The rising cost of living is squeezing women much more than men, and they report more concern about how they're going to pay their bills, according to a new 19th News Survey Monkey poll. In every category surveyed, groceries, housing, childcare, medical bills, and retirement, women are more likely to say they are worried about covering those expenses. About 67% of women said that they are worried about the cost of housing, compared with 60% of men. More than two-thirds of women are worried about the cost of groceries, while just over half of men are. Among parents, 52% of women are stressed about the cost of childcare. 45% of men said the same. SurveyMonkey conducted this poll online from September 8th through the 15th among a national sample of over 20,000 people. That is a very large poll. 20,000 US adults with a model error estimate of plus or minus 1 percentage points. In recent months, prices for most necessities have begun rising, and changes from the Trump administration could make affordability more out of reach. Last month saw the largest rise in food prices in nearly 3 years. Costs are up 29% from the start of the pandemic. Upcoming cuts to SNAP, the food stamps program, will make accessing benefits that lower that burden even harder. And housing costs, though they are starting to level out from their post pandemic peak in 2022, are still outpacing inflation. Rising tariffs, which took effect last month, are only expected to worsen both. The cost of childcare is also outpacing inflation, averaging $13,128 in 2024, a 29% increase from 2020. And medical bills are soon expected to increase for those on Medicaid, the lowest income Americans, and especially women and children, after Congress cut more than $1 trillion from the program over the next decade. Another reason why I will continue to say the birth rate needs to plummet to hell, because women are the ones that are most impacted by this cost of childcare. That is over $1,000 a month. Over $1,000 a month. That is that is so unattainable. Like, even thinking about it, like, okay, you all want us to have more babies. Okay, great. So I have this baby. I get to feed this baby. I get to spend $1,000 to put this child in daycare. Oh, wow. And I get to go to work, and I get to pay these rising costs of food. This just makes so much sense. Let the birth rate plummet to hell. Okay, let's keep it going back to the article. On retirement, a spending package that passed Congress this year will provide a tax break to Americans 65 and older, but it will also make the Social Security Trust insolvent by 2032, meaning retired women, the majority of Social Security beneficiaries, could see cuts to their income in the coming years. If Americans are worried, it's easy to see why. It's also no mystery why women may be worried even more. Women make the majority of consumer purchases for their families and face rising grocery costs head on. Those costs are going to make it harder to pay for other needs like rent. Women are more likely to be renters, less likely to be homeowners, and more likely to be spending over a third of their earnings on housing alone. If they're parents of young kids, their other big line item expense is probably childcare, which for those with 2 or more children now exceeds the cost of average rent or mortgage in most states. I don't know if that last piece got cut off. Childcare is exceeding rent or mortgage in most states. It says, and if childcare falls through, women are the ones most likely to have to leave work or stitch together care or leave the labor force altogether. Perhaps they're missing work because their child is sick. Women are more likely to shoulder the healthcare expenses for kids because they are the primary caregivers, while also themselves facing higher healthcare costs on average because they go to the doctor more frequently for things like prenatal and reproductive care. After all of that is tallied up, what is left for retirement? Thanks to historic inequality, about 30% less than men. Moms are more worried than dads about childcare costs. You see right here, 52% of moms are worried about childcare costs, 45% of dads are. For women, 45% are not really worried. For men, 53%. Obviously, because who is the one that's typically the ones shouldering or finding childcare? The ladies. This makes sense. The shift in who does all the bill paying over the last generation is not just that women do the shopping, they are also frequently the ones handling the mortgage check, paying the credit card bills, definitely looking at the aftercare bills or the childcare bills, said Mike Matowitz, the principal economist at the Roosevelt Institute, a liberal think tank. And while men tend to view the economy more individualistically, women are making the decisions across the whole family's bank account, Matowitz said, while taking the kids to the doctor and drawing up the grocery list. It's both like women are in fact the accounting department and the manufacturing department, he said. That view into household finances has made it so, historically, women have consistently felt worse about the economy than men because they tend to have fewer earnings and more caregiving responsibilities outside the home. They feel the impact of higher costs first. Women of color feel it most of all. In the 19th News SurveyMonkey poll, Latinas especially consistently reported higher rates of worry than any other group across nearly all categories except retirement. On groceries, 77% of Latinas reported feeling worried about growing costs, compared with 69% of white women. It was the same for childcare, 47% versus 28%. Housing, 77% versus 63%. And medical bills, 73% versus 69%. Yes, I know I did this part at the beginning, but I'm still just going to read it through. Black women also had far higher rates than their white counterparts, especially when it came to food and housing costs. Since early this year, Black women's unemployment rate has been rising far quicker than for any other groups, from 5.1% in March to 6.7% in August. It's currently at its highest rate in 4 years. Now, the arrival of higher tariffs on most countries is adding a new stressor to the mix that is already showing up in the inflation data. There are things like groceries where we know it's going to show up really fast, and that's obviously stressful because you're seeing it right away. And also, you're seeing it right away in places where it's not particularly easy to cut your spending. But then there's all this stuff where it's not showing up right away. And on some level, that also produces anxiety because it's like, well, I know this is coming. That feeling of uncertainty has been hanging over Nicole Tate and her family of four in New Jersey. Tate has her own consulting business focused on marketing and business development, and her husband works with real estate investment properties. They have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old and make a pretty good living, and still, it's tight, she said. Everything post-pandemic has gone up, and then the uncertainty of everything. Costs have never really come down. Then tariffs have only added to it. There's all sorts of different pressures. If they had another child, what would we do? Tate said. There's nowhere to move in our area. We couldn't buy anything here. Even recently, as she did the kids' fall shopping at Old Navy, she noticed those prices had increased. The same is true at the grocery store. Tate hosts a podcast on parents and politics, and her most recent episode discussed exorbitant grocery prices for healthy food items. It was inspired by a LinkedIn post from food importer Greg Santolo about a bowl of cut fruit at Whole Foods with a $35 price tag. Jesus. She and her husband, Tate said, are just very cognizant of the fact that prices are going up. There is absolutely no social safety net. The government isn't making any policies to help the average American. They are only making it harder through taking away people's health care, not doing anything to improve our health system, not doing anything to invest in our schools or public education or childcare, the things that parents need. Tate grew up with a single mother and feels like there is no way that today the lifestyle of a single mom raising 2 kids is anywhere near how my mom was able to raise us. For women of her generation, she said, I feel like the cards are so broadly stacked against us. And the thing to remember, even if you have babies while married, you never know if you're going to end up taking care of those children alone. That's the reason why I will continue to say the birth rate needs to plummet to hell right now, because what they are doing, taking away social safety nets, making sure that everything just costs so much. I mean, they could put in some subsidies for childcare so that the daycare workers get paid, so the daycare owners get paid, and so it's not so costly. Because otherwise, how are people going to make it when the cost of childcare costs as much as rent? During this time where food costs are up 29% or 50% or whatnot. Things are doubling in cost, and it's only getting worse because we have a toddler in chief. We have a big elderly man baby sitting up here just adding tariffs to everything. So don't be sick in this country. Don't need things like a sink because he's adding a tariff to sinks and vanities. Don't need anything like metal. Don't need anything like you got to get some parts replaced for your car, because everything is just going up and up and up. So opt out for right now. Opt out for right now. Anyways, join the conversation. I did this one because it just makes sense. It's so relevant to us right now, especially as women, because we're the ones that are doing the majority of the shopping for our families. Let me know what you think about all this. I'm aiming to get to 100,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. If you are watching this on YouTube and you haven't yet followed me, go ahead and bam, smash the follow button.